the Mitsubishi Evo. One of the most legendary cars in JDM car culture, ranking up there with the Supra, the GTR, and the RX-7. A car with incredible racing potential, following after its own rally heritage and drag strip dominance.
Yeah. There you go.
It's a car that you have been lied to about. What's up everybody, how's it going, and welcome to another episode of Car Rant. Today, I want to talk to you guys about some misconceptions that people have had about the car, and to give you a little credibility, allow me to tell you more about my own Evo. Since 2016, I have owned a yellow Evo 8 that we named Rika. It is currently being built by our friends at More Automotive, and it's capable of going up to about 1,000 horsepower if we put it on ethanol and change a couple of components out. As of right now, it's probably capable of about 6. We'll find out when that episode airs. But the car itself is quite amazing. We've put probably close to about 35,000 miles on it, done plenty of mod work along the way, and enjoyed it tremendously. It was my dream car when I was a kid, and it still remains my dream car now. Yes, I like having attainable goals, and I went for it, and I have not regretted it at all. I've enjoyed every step of the journey, except for, you know, when the car breaks and I inevitably gotta fix it, or I want to modify it and I gotta wait. So with all of that said, I want to talk to you guys about some misconceptions, some misgivings that people on the internet have put on this car because they don't understand this car. To put it simply, the Mitsubishi Evo is an all-wheel drive, turbo-powered, 4-cylinder engine rally car. It's not crazy, it's very simple in its design, and more importantly, they're very mechanical. There's not a lot of electronic influence in the car until its very last iterations with 4G63, and then when it went 4B11. With that said, it's very simple to drive, but it's a car that is not exactly smooth either. It's a very aggressive car, even in its stock format. It's not a car that you get in and expect it to be smooth or drive well. It is a very much so strapped to a rocket and hope you can steer it kind of sensation when you drive it. I personally love it. It's why I've continued to own my car. But there are some people who have talked bad about that aspect of the Evo, that it is extremely aggressive. See, there's some things you have to keep in mind about this car. It's not a normal sedan. It's not even a normal car. It's a car that was homogenized down for us, the average consumer, to drive, to own, to build, to do whatever it is you want to do with it. So when you take a car that was a compact car from honestly the 70s and 80s that then translated into this race car over time, and then they have to tune it and turn it back down into that said compact car but with more bells and whistles, there's gonna be certain creature comforts that kind of go away with that. And if you're not into race cars, or more importantly cars that are not normal, you know, not comfortable and all that crazy stuff, this is going to be a very aggressive and might not even be pleasant experience for you. The clutch is heavy, the steering is not light, the shifting is extremely notchy, and it's also pretty loud, just stock. All those things add up to a fabulous time for someone like me, who's obviously a big fan and loves the car. But if you're not into raucous, loud 4-cylinder with just some really like tight everything, you might want to consider a different car. Maybe an STI. With some of that racing history kind of established, what are some misgivings about this car? Well, for one thing, the gearing is not set up for road driving. It really is set up more for tight, twisty roads that are narrow, not exactly the most forgiving on a normal driver. It's made for rally style driving. It's made to be shifted a lot and also to get as much power out of its gear every time. So that said, they're not long gears, but they're not tight short gears either. They're kind of in the middle, and because of that, it can be rather difficult to drive it on the road normally. I've seen many people complain about this aspect of the car until they finally go and actually pay a transmission shop to change out the gear ratios to ones that are a little bit more suited to that. Out of the box, it's great for someone like me who likes to shift more and just enjoys the sensation of driving. But if you just want to cruise, you'll find yourself in fifth gear going 60 miles an hour at 2,500 RPM. And that's not where you want to be normally. Another thing I've heard a lot of people complain about is the lack of cruise control. Why does an Evo need cruise control? Honestly, think about it. You're in a rally car. You're in a car that is supposed to go flying through the woods at 100 miles an hour and then expected to turn left on the stop of a dime. Why would you ever want cruise control on a setup like that? You have to remember that this was not a street car turned rally car. This is a car developed into a rally car that had to be turned back into a street car. So when you have that mindset about it and know that most of the setup that's in the car on the race thing is also the same one on the normal human thing, it's gonna translate to very aggressive and also, there's no cruise control. Why would you ever use it? If you're Tommy Mäkinen in Sweden trying to throw this thing around on a rally stage, why would you ever put it in cruise? You're going, you know what I'm saying? You're not just willy-nilly doing whatever. You are booking it doing this. Why would you need cruise control? I've heard people as big as C0 Media complain about not having cruise control in his, I want to say it's an Evo 9. Now, yes, Evo 10s and the SSTs and whatnot did have the option for cruise control, but for everything else back in the past, it wasn't an option because it wasn't something that they thought about putting in the car. And honestly, it adds more weight to a relatively heavy shell already as is. Evos aren't the lightest cars on the face of the earth, and if you learn how to drive one well, you will also realize very quickly that it can be a bit of a porker going into corners despite its incredibly agile all-wheel drive system. So again, I asked the question, why would you put cruise control on a race car? It's not meant for it. So if that's something that's going to bother you as a possible buyer, something to keep in mind. And for the last of my misconceptions, I want to talk about its reliability. See, a lot of people think that these cars are just insanely unreliable for some reason. And while I know that this might get me a lot of comments down below being very angry and upset saying, oh, mine blew up, blah, 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 you have to remember a couple of things that are extremely important with these cars. They are maintenance heavy, yes, but more importantly, maintenance specific. Certain things have to be done certain ways in order to keep them alive. They need certain kinds of fluids and they need certain kinds of care. They need time to warm up and they need time to cool down. They're not made to just be driven, thrown around, daily driven, whatever. You can do it, but you have to be willing to change your life a little bit in order to do so. I daily drove my car for a year. I learned very quickly that there are certain aspects of this car that have to be handled very specifically or else you could do extreme damage. Some of those things involve the sensors in the car. I had a few go bad that unfortunately weren't made by the same manufacturer anymore, and I had to go to somebody else, and that part just kept breaking and breaking and breaking, and it's because the quality wasn't there. Once I changed brands and I got a different one, it worked perfectly fine. It was a camshaft position sensor, and that episode is kind of funny. You should check it out. Look at the link in the corner. Another aspect of it is how you change out your fluids. More specifically, what fluids you change out when and with what. I know that was kind of a weird sentence, but these cars need very specific kinds of oil in order to stay running. And you can't just willy-nilly throw in, Valvoline into it or whatever. You have to make sure you're using the right oils because there are certain aspects and qualities to them that could turn out to be dangerous for your setup. I almost destroyed my transmission when I put in Mobil 1 transmission fluid into it instead of the correct AP5 GL5 grit package that was supposed to be in there from things like Redline, Amsoil, and Diaqueen. These cars are ones that require very specified maintenance, much like a dog does. You can't just feed your dog anything. You can make it sick or kill it. You have to give it the food that it needs in order to grow and develop correctly. And this car is the exact same way. A lot of people end up breaking or totaling their cars because they just don't put the right parts on it or support it the way they should. They'll put whatever brake pads that fit because they fit and I need it to work. No, get pads that'll work with the weight of the car and the way you drive. Otherwise you'll crash it. Some people will just put whatever fluids. No, you need the right ones or else they might be too thin and thus wear out the pistons on the inside or possibly damage the head. You have to work with the car the way it wants to. And that can be said of any car, really. Like I said, I daily drove my Evo for 20,000 miles. And I never had a problem. In fact, we found out later on that this car actually had chatter marks from before I owned it, and it still worked and had perfect compression. It just goes to show that the maintenance is what keeps these cars alive, and if you're not willing to put up with the way it needs to be treated, this might not be a car for you. Now, with all of that said, I hope that I shed some light on these rather negative viewpoints of the car and gave you a new perspective, one that helps you to understand what the purpose and the design house and idealism behind this car was really about. Because they are incredible cars. If you can get one and you're capable of maintaining it and driving it and doing everything you should with it, go for it. They're awesome cars. They can be used in a multitude of ways, whether it's you rebuild it to make it into a rally capable car, or you turn it into a drag car, or you do like I did, make it into a really awesome street car like I always dreamed I wanted it to be. You have plenty of options with a car like this. Just don't let these specific things be stuff that turns you off. Understand what the car is and celebrate it for what it really is. A car built by geniuses trying to make a race car and make it into more of a palatable everyday car while still maintaining some of that grit and aggression that the race car has. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This video is one that is long overdue. I have been wanting to talk about this forever, and with the return of my own Evo coming back to this channel soon, I felt like now was a good time to talk about it, because then you can see me struggle to get used to the car all over again when it comes back. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know down below, what are your thoughts and opinions? If you're an Evo owner, what do you think of my list? Do you agree, or do you think that I'm just out of my mind and think I'm nuts and the car should be different? I'm very curious to see what you gotta say. And with all that said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. God bless, and peace.
That is, I assumed we needed a bigger inlet. That is a mess. I didn't realize how big it was until it's on the car.
So the problem with a lot of this stuff, especially with a large turbo frame like this, is that your radiator has almost no
Yeah, there's no room for anything in there.
So the other option would be to go to half size.
Shoebox size.
So half size radiator